Hi everyone, and welcome back to another review of one of the products that one of you have sent me. So if this is the first video you've seen of this kind on the channel, just a little bit of information that I like to mention in each one of these. This is a completely voluntary, optional thing that some of you have just chosen to do, and by sending me one of your candles or products to check out on the channel. Look it over, check out the presentation, the packaging, the labeling, do some burning, and then just provide some fun feedback and general feedback on the channel. Hi everyone, and welcome back. If you are new to this channel, my name is Wade Thomas. I'm the owner of Black Tie Barn Candle Company. So as I mentioned, today we're going to be doing some general feedback and checking out one of the products that one of you has sent to me. In fact, this one specifically is coming from Parris Joy Soap and Candle Company. If you are interested in learning more about candle making, running a candle business, candle material and product reviews, then I don't want you to miss any videos in the future. And the best way to do that is to let YouTube know you're interested by subscribing and liking this video. And as I like to mention in each one of these videos real briefly, as a reminder, this is not to pass any kind of judgment or provide any kind of criticism to the products that you all sent me, so never worry about that. We all make different types of candles for different types of reasons. Some are different sizes, some are different oils, different waxes, so they're gonna vary in several different ways. Some might perform completely different than others. So I'm not here as some kind of end-all be-all or expert to let you know if your candle is a pass or fail. That is not what this is about. But we are always looking for a different perspective and get new eyes on our product and some general feedback. And so that is more what this is about. It's going to be fun and lighthearted and casual. And if I think of little things along the way that you might be interested or you might find helpful for your product, then I will definitely mention that. But again, they're just suggestions, they're just opinions. We all are always kind of looking for ways to improve or other things to consider, including myself. I'm always tweaking my labels. I'm always messing with wicks. And so we're all in this together, and that is the whole point of doing this. It's just for fun. I hope you all enjoy this. So let's go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned, this is Parris Joy Soap and Candle Company. Now I did start to already cut this one. That's why there's a slit in the middle, and then I realized, ooh, I better stop because I don't have the camera running. So let's go ahead and finish opening. And I'm trying not to bounce around too much here because this other camera will shake a lot if I do it. So as we dig into this box, ooh, this has got several products. Well, let's go ahead and read this before we go too far. So this is just a quick little note. They also included, just kind of as of a token appreciation, a black pepper amber bar soap and an oat goat milk and honey bar soap. Just for me to use and check out as well. So first of all, I appreciate that very much. Thank you. You definitely didn't have to send extras like that, but I do appreciate it. That was really thoughtful. Thank you very much. And I do just want to say, it's kind of an awesome feeling. You guys, it's really cool that you just want to share some of your products with me. And I know that a lot of you, I've known for quite some time now, you've been active members of the channel and other platforms. And so we talk on, in these groups and talk on the channel. And I feel like I feel like almost all of you I know already. Like we've engaged and there's been conversation. We've started to build connections and just that we're all in a big business together. And it's a really cool feeling. And it's, like I said, it's like I almost know a lot of you, even though we've never actually met. So it's really cool. And it's just, I really appreciate, and it's just an awesome feeling that you guys like to share your products with me and are being open with testing and reviewing like this. So just thank you, all of you, and also, of course, to Parris Joy Soap and Candle for sending these in. Without too much more mushy-gushy stuff, let's go ahead and jump in and see what we got here. So I'm going to go ahead and take all of the products out first, and then set the box aside so we can check out everything a little bit better. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, first of all, as you can see, everything is not only bubble wrapped, but also protected with packing peanuts in a box of an appropriate size. So no issues with packaging or anything like that. I'm usually a little overcautious with packaging. Any of you that have ordered candles from me before or have seen me on other videos packaging candles, I do a lot of a box within a box method, and other situations where I can't do a box in a box method, either because of the number of products or the size of the boxes involved, then I just do a ton of cushion and packaging. I'm always nervous if something's I've always been that way. I've never had anything break. And that is probably because of how much I go overboard on packaging. But with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look. So as I said, they're all individually wrapped with a product label or a branding label on the outside. And like I said, we've got 5 products here. So, all right, so let's go ahead and take a look at candle number 1. This is a Libby status jar or something similar to that, which are very common jars that a lot of companies start with and then continue to use because they have some elegance to them. They're interesting looking, but they're also readily available at most candle suppliers. So very common jar, and of course it does look sharp. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the label. As you can see, they've got a really nice logo, Parris Joy Candle Company. Hopefully you can see that. The fragrance on this one is Cherry Vanilla Jubilee. And as you can see, it says natural soy wax candle, handcrafted in Michigan. Their website is listed, and then it says net weight 9 ounces. So first thing, as I like to talk about a few of the important details on the label, and I want to say right off the bat that they definitely got everything right, everything they kind of need to be on a label, but most importantly, they got the net weight right. That is a common little mistake. They put the total weight of the jar, or they put the volume, how much volume it would hold as far as a liquid goes. But this is net weight, which is the right way to do it. It's just the weight of the wax on the inside. So everything looks great. It is a simple yet effective label. The only thing I would maybe mention on this is a little bit more contrast, just because of the natural color of the wax. And there's not much color or anything going on the label, that it is not a whole lot of contrast going on. However, that could be by design. A lot of companies use a theme or a certain color scale or hue, or they're going for a certain particular look. And if you are going for something very natural and clean looking, then this is perfect. If you're going for something that stands out a little bit more, you want to add a little bit of contrast or color, that would be the only thing, other than the font is a little bit tough to read on the fragrance name. And I can read and make it out, so it's not a problem. Just maybe something I would experiment with, some other font choices. And if you really are dead set on this font, maybe add an extra layer, like duplicate the font layer or bold it so it's just a tad easier to read. Those would be my only suggestions on the label. On the bottom, there is your typical warning label. Now, if we go ahead and open up the candle, and you'll notice a couple things whenever you're working with candles that use lids, like the status jar lid, is they protrude a lot in the inside, and so the candle wax can only be filled up to a certain amount in order for the lid to fit in. Now in this particular one, it does have a cutout in the lid, so you could probably go a little bit higher with the wax level and still have a little bit of room for the wick if you wanted, but not all lids will have that cutout, so it's probably good to standardize how much you're going to fill this up. Also, not to mention, they did pick an amount of 9 ounces, so the idea is to make every candle the same, 9 ounces, so no problems with the fill. Actually, I think it's a good level and appropriate. The wick, now candle wicks you really want to keep to about 1/4 inch, and we tell our customers to trim to 1/4 inch. In this particular one, they don't pre-trim them, it looks like, to 1/4 inch. They are trimmed down, but this is more like about 1/2 to 3/4 inches. It's pretty common still. A lot of candle companies do that, and they just rely on the customer to trim it the first time. Personally, that's not what I do. I like to trim mine to the proper wick length right out of the box. That way the customer doesn't have to do any trimming. They can just go ahead and light it. Now, on the first burn, it's not near as big of a deal that it's trimmed down to 1/4 inch, because until it starts to consume the wax, consume the fuel, the wick will just burn down the first time fairly easily. So it's not a huge deal on the first one, which is why a lot of companies do this, and it's not a problem. It's just I prefer to have it cut to length to 1/4 inch right out of the box. Again, that's just a personal preference, but I would recommend that, honestly. Now, this is a natural 464 wax, it appears. You can tell very quickly that that is the wax being used, just because of the kind of the surface. It is smoothed over, so it's whether that's done with just really good pour temperatures and processes, or maybe a little bit of a heat gun, it is nice and flat. You're not seeing any big craters or bumps, but natural soy waxes, particularly 464, for example, do have that kind of rough sandpaperish type of feel on them. Sandpaper, that's a terrible description. Just a rough texture, a little bit of a rough texture. So, but it looks good, looks very, very good. Nothing that looks like major sinkholes or anything like that. 464 and soy waxes are known for incredible cold throw. I barely had the lid off, and I was like, yep, it's there. So obviously really good cold throw. Cherry Vanilla Jubilee, it's perfect. That smells exactly like the description. Very good. You know, I don't have any fragrances like this that I sell in my candle line, so I'm interested to burn this because I'd like to, I guess, get my own personal feedback and opinions on what this is like when it's burning. I don't have anything like this in my candle line. I've got a lot of vanillas and some cherry fragrances. I just haven't really used them yet. So I am interested in checking that out and burning it. I can tell looking at the wick. I'm going to assume that's a CD wick by the size of it, but it could be HTP as well. But I'm gonna go with CD wick. Now they may have told me some of the details in the letter. I don't actually recall, but either way, I think it's a little bit more fun for me to kind of make my own educated guesses on it. But I'll look back and see how far I was either right or wrong once I'm done here. So that's the first candle. I know we spent a lot of time on that one because the second jar is just a different fragrance. So we're not going to talk about the label and the wax and the wick again. We're just going to talk about the scent on this one. First thing I noticed on this one is the name is Aiden. And that's actually my middle son's name is Aiden, spelt differently. But this might be just to show what a custom or personalized candle label could look like. Or it might be the name of the scent. Now, one thing I noticed for sure is obviously that it's much easier to read on this one as compared to the other one. It's bigger and bolder, so that's what makes me think this was to be customized or personalized for a customer if they wanted it. My only advice on this one's kind of the opposite of the first one. The first one I think needed to be a little bit more bold and easier to read. And on this one, I would probably go a little smaller as it's very similar to the size of the logo. Or maybe make it a different font or different color. Maybe perhaps just black or something a little bit different than the Parris Joy logo. So again, that's just personal preference type of things. Let's talk about the fragrance a little bit. Very strong, very strong. Now, that's partially the type of fragrance, which I don't know entirely what it is. It's almost got a baby powderish smell with a little bit of a floral and woodsy notes, but it's very, very strong, partially because of the oil, but also again, because soy waxes like 464 have really good cold throw. It's not generally my favorite wax when it comes to hot throw. We'll talk about that in a minute, but the cold throw is incredible. Very strong fragrance. You're gonna have no problems getting customers to wanna buy these off the shelf because again, the cold throw is incredible. So thank you, first of all, for sending those two candles. One more look at those. Let's go ahead and take a look at whatever this might be. Oh, wow. That is a fancy jar. Okay. Well, I don't know what's in here, but I love this jar. Especially that lid. Are you kidding me? I don't know if the camera's showing it as well as it actually feels, but this is a gorgeous container. All right, so my interest is piqued. And it's a tiny, cute little wood wick. I love it. This would be perfect for a small bedroom, bathroom. That's unique for me. I haven't really seen a candle like this, so very good job on being unique and different. And I love the jar. I love the jar. I'd be curious where those jars came from, or if they're custom designed. Probably not. So I'd be curious where they got the jars. The lid's gorgeous. Now, one thing to note on a jar like this is there's clearly no spot for a label, so you would want to include some type of product information one way or another. If you make your own warning labels, you could do it on the bottom of the warning label. If you put it in a box, you could do it on the outside of the box, or just some kind of way to identify the product, because that is generally required to sell. So you might have to do a hang tag or something, but generally if you were to set this on a shelf and sell it in a store, it would need some type of product identifier, which can be tough on these really fancy decorative jars. Otherwise, it is gorgeous. So we've got two cotton wicks. And then in this one, it is the same wax, 464 natural wax, you can tell by the feel of it. And the wood wick inside is a booster wood wick, meaning it's got a regular wood wick with a smaller, thick one in the middle attached to it. And that serves as the booster. You will generally only see that with either very large candles or natural soy candles because they need that extra heat to keep the flame going. I'm not sure what the fragrance is. It seems somewhat familiar, but honestly, after smelling the other two, I've got a lot of things going on here in my nose at the moment. So I can't pick up what it is. It's interesting. I smell a little bit of a sweetness, a little bit of a kind of a fruit, like a little bit of an orange maybe. And then I smell definitely some kind of natural outdoorsy smells, maybe a touch of floral maybe, but some woodsy notes as well, like a sandalwood. There's the two things I would say for sure in this is a little bit of sandalwood and a little bit of orange or mandarin, I guess it might be. But very a very nice, fresh, clean smell. Love the container. Absolutely love the container. And I'm really curious how this is going to burn in that jar. Let me just show you real quick. They make soaps as well. So these appear to be a cold processed soap would be my guess. It's definitely not like a melt and pour. This is a real soap here. Oh, they even got their logo stamped on it. So believe it or not, I do have experience with soaps and some other products as well. I just don't use this channel for that yet, or even my website. It's more something done kind of private label and behind the scenes and wholesale. So it's not something to talk about, but I have considered once a new workshop is up and going of adding that to the channel as well. So I am interested in checking out these soaps as well. That's the Black Pepper Amber, which I'm really excited to try. And then oat, goat milk, and honey. Thank you for the bars of soap. I really appreciate that. So what's going to come next is I'm going to step away from the camera and test burn these for several days up to a week, and then I'll come back actually right away and let you know after I've had a chance to burn them what the hot throw was like and how they burned and basically overall everything like that. And then I will give kind of my overall feedback on the candles and then any final thoughts. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the cold throw on soy waxes is in 464 is incredible. It's no huge secret that I'm not a huge fan of using 464 in my candles. And that is just, I guess, for a few reasons, but more than anything, I've just gotten so used to working with some other waxes that I just like so much better that it's hard for me to want to go back to something I've used before that I didn't like as much. So part of it's just being stubborn, that I just don't want to go back. I like what I use, although, yeah, that's not entirely true. I'm always messing with other waxes and trying new things, but soy waxes like 464 are known to be very picky with their oils. So it's incredibly important when you're using a wax like 464, for example, to choose oils carefully. Definitely sample before you invest too much, because some oils will just flat out not throw well in some soy waxes. No matter what you do and how you try to trick it into doing so, they just don't always perform that way. So it's important to test and use fragrance oils that are compatible with your wax and test it for yourself. Don't rely on other reviews because everyone's got different noses and we all pick up different things. That being said, based off these two, I'm assuming that they've chosen oils that work really good with their product. They are a full company, so I have no doubt that these are going to do great. So I'm excited to go test these candles, and I'll be back in just a minute. Hey everyone, I am back from doing some testing on these candles sent to me by Parris Joy Candle Company. And if you recall, they sent me 3 candles, 2 that were very similar, just a different fragrance, and then also a smaller, really, really nice, classy jar with a little woodwick in it. So we're going to break each of these down and talk a little bit about them and provide you a little bit of feedback after I had a chance to actually test them burning. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the scent type of each one. The 2 larger ones, one of them was called Cherry Vanilla Jubilee and the other one was called Aiden. Now, I'm not sure if that's the normal name of the fragrance they use or if this was just showing off a label if someone wanted to use a name or something, some other kind of personalization on their label. Now, I will say out of the 2, by far my favorite one was the Cherry Vanilla Jubilee, but that's just a personal preference. We all like and dislike different scents, obviously. Not that there was anything wrong with this one, just not the type of fragrance that I normally would really enjoy. On the flip side, I did very much so enjoy the Cherry Vanilla Jubilee. I have never actually used that fragrance, so I was excited to try it, and I was not disappointed. It smelled really, really good. As far as the actual scent throw, the hot throw of burning these candles. So if we refer back to the earlier part of the video, I believe I talked about the cold throw with using a soy wax like 464. And I'm pretty positive that's what this wax is for several reasons. But cold throw with these types of waxes is excellent. It's a very soft wax. Soy has good characteristics as far as cold throws go, but they don't always have the strongest hot throw. That is fairly consistent with what I noticed with burning these 2 candles. The hot throw was fine, and actually compared to several other 464 candles I've used, they might have even been above average slightly, especially the Cherry Vanilla Jubilee. I had it burning downstairs in an open space area for most of the time while I was testing it, and it did a good job throwing the scent. It does take a little while. The scent will get stronger as it gets further down in the jar, and that melt pool can get a little bit deeper. But overall, I was pretty impressed with the hot throw of the Cherry Jubilee. The Aiden fragrance wasn't quite as good of a hot throw. On a scale of, I don't know, 1 to 10, I'd probably give these around a 6 on hot throw, maybe a 7. But again, that's pretty good for 464. It is not known to be the strongest throwing wax. It's not going to be as good as something like 6006, usually something like ProBlend 600. Definitely most of your paraffin and some of your palm waxes as well. 464 is fairly picky when it comes to oils that work really well with it. And I would say that the Parris Joy Candle Company did a great job at selecting, for sure, the Cherry Vanilla Jubilee because it performed great with this 464 wax. So let's talk about the wicking now. If I had to guess, I would say that these are probably CD wicks. And based off the size of the jar, probably somewhere in that range of CD 18 to 24 if I had to guess. Soy waxes like 464 require a much hotter burning wick, so I would expect them to be CD wicks. They could be HTP or Eco wicks as well, but based on how they burned and the way they kind of curled and mushroomed a little bit on the end, the way they looked makes me think they were CD wicks, which is pretty common with 464 and other soy waxes because it does have that extra heat. And what's interesting about soy waxes and 464 in particular is they are low melt point waxes, so you would think it wouldn't take as much heat to melt the wax, which is true. It's not that it takes a lot of heat to melt the wax, but it takes extra heat to break down the molecules, and that is what releases the fragrance throw. That's why wicking soy candles can be very, very difficult, because you've got to wick up hot enough to break down the molecules to get good hot throw. But if you wick up that large, you usually get mushrooming and some other smoke and problems like that, and that is why wicking soy candles can be very, very difficult. If you wick for the perfect size, you're probably not going to get the greatest hot throw. If you wick for a great hot throw, sometimes you can end up with an oversized wick. I'm going to talk about this here, a few suggestions potentially here at the end. But as far as the wick goes, they did tend to mushroom a little bit for me. Actually, at first, I thought the candle, this Aiden candle, I thought was going to tunnel at first. It seemed to be struggling on the very first melt pool. But as you can see, the jar went clear, and sometimes I power burn them, so other times I trim them normally and burn them. And it did not tunnel. So that was the good news. The wax did catch up, as it usually will with low melt point waxes. So CD wicks is definitely a decent choice for 464. Again, some people also use HTP wicks. Some people use Premier wicks, although it's difficult in jars this size. Some people use Eco wicks, and then I've also seen paper core wicks used as well. So there's a lot of variety of options you can use. I would say the most common for 464 is probably CD wicks. They have some pros and cons. The pros to using them in this wax is that they're hot enough and they break down the molecules, and it allows for better hot throw. The disadvantage of using CD wicks is they tend to mushroom quite a bit. They lean and curl in a weird way, and the flames get kind of wild sometimes, and you'll even get some soot and smoke. There's a big misconception out there about soy waxes not sooting. That is not true. Sooting is usually a result of fragrance oil and the wick, and if any wax can soot. In fact, in this one, the Parris Joy, it did get a little bit of soot in the outside of the rim. I don't know if the camera will pick it up. And that's pretty common, especially with CD wicks. Any wicks that are oversized, too much fragrance oil, or get too close to the glass can create a little bit of soot. It's not a problem. It's not a bad thing. I just wanted to kind of clear up a little bit of a misconception there. Any wax can soot. 464 is 100% soy wax. There's no paraffin in it, yet it can still soot a little bit because wax is not the only factor when it comes to burn qualities. So speaking of burn qualities, I'll dig a little bit more into that. Both candles ended up burning very well, top to bottom. I didn't make it completely all the way through the Cherry Vanilla Jubilee, but like I said, most of the wax was breaking down on the sides. It seemed to be optimal sizing. It's really, really tough for me to suggest a different size on these wicks because anything larger definitely would have been too much. Anything smaller, which is what I would have probably wanted to recommend, but then you risk it tunneling or not really breaking down the soy, and it might have caused the hot throw to suffer. So I would say that the wick sizing is probably appropriate. When it comes to the smaller little wood wick candle here, because this is a soy wax 464, it did use a little booster wick, and I can't tell if this is a 0.02 or 0.03 wick that also has a booster in the middle of it. This one did tend to struggle to stay lit for me just a little bit, and I also had a hard time really getting all the wax broken down. However, I do suspect that if I burned it longer, it would have caught up just like the rest of these jars. So I don't really have much to say as far as the sizing goes, but I did experience some issues keeping the wood wick lit. That is sometimes common with wood wicks, and it's very common with certain waxes. Wood wicks don't work great in every wax. I don't use wood wicks specifically to do 464 testing. I've done in the past, so I can't speak to how it does normally, but it did okay, and once it kind of got going, it was pretty good. My favorite thing about this candle is that when the wick was burning correctly, it looked great, it sounded great, and the jar is amazing. I really absolutely love this jar. Oh, and like I said, I don't know exactly what the fragrance oil was in this one, but I just used this mostly in an office area, and it smelled really, really good. A few things that I would offer as potential suggestions. Again, you can take these with a grain of salt. And it's totally up to you if you want to use any of this feedback. These are just my personal observations through my own experiences. And of course, different results will vary depending on who burns your candle. So you might get totally different results from someone else. But a few things that I would mention. If you are interested in improving the way that this wax is consumed and burned, one option, of course, that a lot of people do with 464 is they end up mixing it with another wax. So if you want to keep it in a natural type of market, then you might consider adding a little bit of a lower melt point soy, or even a Parris soy blend, or introducing a little bit of coconut wax in it. The coconut wax will help kind of smooth out some of the top textures, but also it might thin out the wax a little bit and could make wicking a tad easier. Don't know that for sure because a lot of it depends on other factors like your jar size and the fragrance oil that you're using, but you might experiment with a few other things to see if there's anything you can do to make wicking the candle a little bit easier. However, one suggestion you could definitely try in terms of making wicking a little easier is this is the jar size that's really, really tough to wick with almost any wax. The reason is because it's a little bit too big for a single wick to work great, and it's usually a little bit too small to use double wicks. So that middle range size makes it pretty tough to wick. However, with a wax like 464, which will be pretty cool and not get too hot on the glass, one thing you could definitely do in this wax is double wick this jar. Now you would really want to experiment and do some testing and make sure you use really small wicks. So if you're in the CD range, you might start off with a couple of CD10s, for example. I'm not entirely sure. I don't use a lot of CD wicks anymore. And so you'll want to experiment for sure, but you could definitely try double wicking these containers. The benefit of doing that is you're still going to get that heat to break down the molecules, release fragrance throw. You're going to get a good burn quality, good burn characteristics. And because you have two wicks kind of tag teaming this and helping each other out, you won't have near as large of mushrooms or issues with one wick trying to do all the work. I wouldn't normally recommend two wicks with a jar this size, but with this wax, you can definitely try it and you could definitely probably get away with it. And you might actually really enjoy the results. So I don't know exactly what size you use. You'll definitely want to experiment, get a sample pack if you don't have some smaller CD wicks, and just see how it goes. And then the last thing that I would recommend with using 464 wax or other soy waxes is to definitely make sure you offer care cards to your customers or put some descriptions on your website on the product page. Give them tips on making sure the wick stays trimmed, and also remind them of the characteristics of soy wax. Sometimes they can get kind of rough textures, they can get little cratery looking tops, that all of that is completely normal, and that it's very important with soy wax to let it burn long enough to melt most of the way across the top, but also to keep the wicks trimmed in between, because you have to use such large wicks that if they don't keep them trimmed, you're going to end up with pretty large mushrooms and potentially kind of large wild flames. Those would be the only really feedback I have as far as the burning of the actual candles went. Oh, and before I let you go, I wanted to mention that they also sent me 2 bars of soap. One was like an oatmeal honey type, and the other one was like a black pepper. I can't remember exactly what it was, but really, really good soaps. I'm actually using the black pepper one. I'm still using it. Like I just used it like an hour ago. It's really, really nice. Leaves your skin feeling great afterwards, and the fragrance was awesome. So I actually was really impressed with the soaps. I know this isn't a soap review, but because they sent it to me, I wanted to let you know that I did test those out and I'm still using them and they're great. So good job all around. Thank you for submitting your candle. Again, if anyone else is interested in sending in a candle for review, let me know by just mentioning it in the comments, and then I will also reach out to you via email. Or you can email me at youtube@blacktiebarn.com. That email address is also listed on the About Me page on the channel About page. That was redundant. That will allow me to send you a little information about where to send the candle and so on. I do try to handle these reviews in the order that I receive them, and sometimes I've got plenty of time, other times I get a little bit backed up, so I will try to be transparent with you where I'm at the process. So if you send me a candle, it might be reviewed in a matter of a couple weeks, and it could be end up being a month or month and a half. So it just kind of depends on where I'm at in the process and how busy I am. But hopefully y'all enjoyed this. I really like doing reviews because not only are they a little bit entertaining, you get to see the work from other candle makers, but you can also learn a little bit when you're reviewing other products as well. Again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Parris Joy Candle Company, for sending in this products for review. I appreciate you all for being here, and I will see you next time. Thanks.